What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Lonely
Hey
Wrist.
everyone.
We have a fully stacked panel here today, and I think Justin and I don't know if we've talked about this. Maybe we just talk about it now, but I think we're gonna go into like a 2.0 of our podcast here. And what I mean when I say that is, I think we're gonna start bringing some collectors on. We've talked about, of course, with industry people, and we're still doing that, but having collectors on and understanding their thought process about why they buy watches, how they collect, I think that could be really inspiring for some of the listeners. So I think that's going to be 2.0. So stay tuned. We're still going to keep our schedule, but welcome to the 2.0 podcast. And today we have the founder of the Atlanta Watch Society. Please introduce yourself.
Hey guys, Giancarlo Rosselli, founder, as Blake mentioned, of the Atlanta Watch Society. Happy to be here.
Glad to have you
Yeah,
on, man.
tell everybody like what. Obviously, we know what the Atlanta Watch Society is. Obviously, we know you, but tell everybody out there who may not know you or may have never heard of you or what you do. Tell them what you do and why you do it.
Well, it's a good question. I really love to bring people together, and that's really one of the things that kind of rings true with what I've done with the Atlanta Watch Society. For a long period of time, I've always liked to bring folks together. As I mentioned, I used to, I'm originally from New York City, born and raised in New York, moved down to Atlanta 3 years ago. And up in New York, I had been part of a few watch communities. But even before I went into watches, I'm a huge Italian soccer, European soccer fan, football fan, for those that might get offended. So I started a club back when in my early 20s called the AC Milan Club of New York City. AC Milan is a huge Italian team, one of the larger teams in Europe. And I
For
started this
sure.
group. I started this group around bringing people together to watch games. Obviously here in the U.S., you don't have the ability to go to the stadium in Italy, so we found a pub in Manhattan, started bringing people together, and that's what I started. So doing that and having grown that group to what it became, which ended up becoming an official club of AC Milan. So the team actually recognized us after a few years,
Wow.
and gave us the official fan club seal of approval. We had about 300 members, active members, and I'm dating myself. Back then, it was Twitter. We ended up having, within a couple of years, 50,000, followers on Twitter, right? So it resonated something, right? And if you would come to our meetups for watching games, people really loved it and came together and that kind of thing, right? So I always thought, you know, I could do this with something else in the future. And then, my passion for watches kind of started taking more and more control of my life before COVID. And I started to frequent some of the local groups in New York City. But then right around, a couple months after COVID, really started to hit hard here in the States, my work asked me to move to Atlanta. They had already asked me before COVID. We had agreed upon it. Things obviously got delayed because of the pandemic. But long story short, moved down to Atlanta for work, settled here, you know, new life, new house. I have kids, setting up the kids. Once I got all that settled, I had no watch friends here. All my watch friends were up in New York or scattered about the country in different forums. So I've also like, aside from just like the soccer group that I mentioned, I've always been very active in like communities on the forum side on Facebook. I run like 4 or 5 Facebook watch groups. And I was also part of a YouTube channel that you may know, the Urban Gentry channel back in the day, helping out with like content and being on some episodes, right? So there was also a Facebook group tied to that YouTube channel, and I used to help run it. So I said, you know what? I could start something myself. I've started Facebook groups myself. I started a soccer club. Why not start a watch club here in Atlanta? And it was pandemic was still going on, so it was a tough time to really kind of get people together. But here in the South, and probably like Vegas as well, different than the Northeast and in California where everything was closed, people were starting to get together a bit. So I put a post out there to a few, on a couple of the Facebook groups that I run, and it resonated with a few folks who were local. A couple of them knew me already from like interactions we had. Funny, I didn't even know they lived in Atlanta. They didn't know I had moved. So the first unofficial event was in my basement. We joke around, like now from basement to like, what we've built now. But it was in the basement, real grassroots. And then we started meeting up at like the local pub, local brewery. And, once we started getting to a point where it was like several people, like 10 to 12, the comfort level of just being out in the open with watches, as we all know, as collectors, gets a little sketchy and scary, right? So I started thinking to myself, I'm going to have to start thinking about security or getting some sort of private space. Yep. So luckily where I live in a subdivision and we have a clubhouse. So one of the members said, hey, why don't you just do it at your clubhouse? And I said, okay, let me try it. And the clubhouse is a decent size and it's nice. So we did it there and people loved it. So about 4 or 5 events in a row of just collector meetups we did there. And then the brands started taking notice, right? And then the brands came in. And obviously with the brands, we don't do it at the clubhouse. That's really just for the collectors in our community just getting together. But when the brands come to town, then, obviously they get a space for us and they pay for security and that's kind of how it goes. But we went from, the basement to, 5, 6 people to now, having 220 members on our on our member list and averaging about like, anywhere from 60 to 80 people per event. So that's a bit, very long-winded, apologies, but kind of like the elevator version of what's been done here in the last 2 years.
Yeah, what do you feel like is different about, so obviously like you've grown really rapidly, so people kind of recognized your club as being a different approach to like a traditional, I don't know if that's the proper way, a traditional watch club to address it, but how did you bring that like that feeling of exclusivity, and how did you differentiate yourself? Because there's clubs out there that we all know about that they feel different, right? So how did you bring that feeling into your Atlanta Watch Society?
That's a great question.
Yeah, it's a great question. And for me, it was all about being open to any type of collector and making people feel comfortable, right? One of our members told me, Giancarlo, if you build, it's a line from a great movie, Field of Dreams, but if you build it, they will come.
It will come. Yep.
And it's true. And what it is I built the kind of group that I really wanted to be a part of, right? And what I mean by that is a group with, and excuse my language, no assholes, right? Nobody that's going to be judging you in a negative way because you're wearing a Seiko 5, right? But also still having the opportunity to have a member who brings in, his Patek Philippe tourbillon, right? Or is a very high, high horology collector, right? So kind of bringing everybody together in one place, making them feel comfortable, giving them that safe space, giving them the opportunity to engage with each other on a regular basis. One thing we all know, and that's why, podcasts like this are great. Us watch nerds, we want content. We want places to listen to people talk about watches. We want places to go where we'll see posts about watches because we are a select group of people and we can't just talk to these, we can't just talk to our regular friends about these things. They think we're crazy or they're like, all right, no, please, no more watch stuff, right?
My wife, she kills me every single time I get on a rant about watches and she's like, bro, shut up.
Yeah. No, I know. I mean, I've since now like drowned my wife in it so much that I think she's starting to like it. But my kids, and they're young, like they can't stand when I stop and take a picture of my watch, like, and one of the biggest jokes in our community now is Giancarlo, anytime he does a wrist roll, sometimes I like to have a wrist roll, like, when I do a roll, I like to have the elements of nature to be the sounds around me, but I can't because my kids are always like, Dad, stop taking pictures of your watches. So I always have to have like music now.
Yeah.
Covering it up. Yeah, sorry.
Did I send you the meme, like a little video of the guy that was like when you date a watch collector? Did I send you that?
Yes, you did. That was fantastic.
I know. I was like,
so good.
I sent that to my wife. Justin, did you saw it, right?
I did too. Yeah.
Yeah,
good.
like so true. And I said it to my wife. My wife, like, she's like, accurate,
So good.
100%. I know, and yeah, we're weird people, but it's so weird because the community is divided, in
Mhm.
my opinion. Like, and so obviously, I just started a YouTube channel. I'm sure some of you may have watched some of my videos, or maybe came from the videos and came backwards into the podcast. But it's so weird to see people argue. Like, I've been arguing with people in my comments, and my friends are like, dude, just stop. I'm
Don't do
like,
it.
no,
Don't do
no,
it.
I'm
Yeah.
like, I'm here to dig my feet in.
Actually, do
like,
it. Hold on. Do it. It helps the algorithm. Sorry.
no, that's exactly right. Like, if you argue with people in your
Smart
comments,
man.
then the algorithm helps you. Like,
Yeah,
it's not, no, it sounds weird, but like,
it does.
you get these weird people that are like,
Mhm.
I was talking to somebody about like an IWC Mark 18 versus a Railmaster or something. He's like, and we were just going back and forth, and eventually, like, I was just like, all right, this is kind of boring. But like, who are you to tell somebody how to spend their money?
Exactly.
Like
He was a stinker.
Yeah, you're not putting food on my table. Like, you're not paying my bills. You're not paying my rent. Like, you definitely don't. It helped me in any way. Like,
Mhm.
I respect your opinion, of course, about a Railmaster. Cool, that's fine. But like, how are you to, and his argument was, oh, the IWC Mark 18 and the Mark 20 are like shitty watches because their movement is cheap, right? And then he referenced like the No Time to Die Bond, which has the same movement as the Railmaster. And I was like, well, let's just spin it backwards. Like, the No Time to Die is a piece of shit because it has the Railmaster movement. You know what I mean? Not that it is a shitty watch, but I'm just
No.
saying, like,
Yeah.
that's the reason why he hates it. And then, it just kind of went from there. But
Dude was using reverse psychology on you, bro. don't sweat it.
I personally feel like IWC is a brand that has like been very transparent about their movement choices. Like, like, even like, if you look at the description, like, I added the watch to my collection, boom, it's online. It says the IWC caliber, whatever it is, I can't remember off the top of my head. And then it says based on the Solita, or like a modified Solita, like SW200, da, da, da. Like, it literally says that in the product description of the watch that I purchased. Obviously now with, the acquisition and Val Fleurier and them starting to make the movements for IWC, like, that has been kind of defined, like, it's changed a little bit, but now in-house doesn't necessarily mean that IWC manufactures the movements.
Correct.
Because that's not the way that it is at all anymore. Like, in-house means in group, right?
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
So people have this weird sense of like, oh, if it's in-house, like, they have to be doing the bridges internally, or like, but you never see somebody trash a Tudor, because they're not in-house. Tudor is essentially a watch assembly company. Like, they get all their parts and different things from different sources and different partners, and it just seems really weird to me.
I agree.
That we're this, that the community has. That's a huge portion of the community
and you're always gonna. Yeah, you're always going to have. Sorry to cut you off, but you're always going to have people like that, right? And back to your original question, we've been lucky. I'll be honest, and a lot of it has to do with how we kind of. And you're in our group, Blake, so you see, we try to keep things really positive, right? No, we won't allow for people to talk down to each other. Like, it's just, also, we don't want to be like a police state either, right? We want free conversation to flow, but we just don't want, like, somebody getting put down by folks that think that their collection is better than yours, right? So it's really just like, that's why I say we've been a little lucky. We've had a couple of people float in that haven't been, the quality human that we thought they were initially, but we don't have like an application process. We have an application on our website, but it's not like, and as we continue to evolve as a society, and kind of maybe expand, and we can get into that later, expand outside of Atlanta, we will take that more seriously. But for now, it's been just like gut feeling on like people who reach out to me to join, either through the website, the Instagram, and really, I think I even said this to somebody recently. I look at people's LinkedIn pages before they actually join.
Oh yeah, investigative work.
Correct. I need, first of all, I need your full name. Like we had a member who gave me like a nickname. I'm like, I'm sorry, can't. Like that. Very few rules we have. I need your full name. If you're gonna come to an event, we need to know who you are, right? Because there's gonna be, really expensive watches there, right?
Yep.
And I try to ask some questions about collection, but really not too much more than that, right? But I do my due diligence on the back end, and at least just try to see if they have some sort of professional profile, which most do. And if they do, you keep that on file. God forbid something happens, you have their professional profile, and you could, whatever, kind of do some work there behind the scenes if needed. But that's really how it's been. But we've been lucky, and a lot of it's been word of mouth. So other members bringing friends of theirs in, that's really helped, and they know how the group is, so they kind of tell them beforehand, hey, listen, this is a real open community. You have members who have Seikos only, who have, Pateks, who have 30 Langas. We have a member who has like 30 Langas, right? So anyway, like it doesn't matter. It's a place for everyone. We all started somewhere.
That's what.
Go ahead, Blake. Sorry.
Well, that's what I feel like is, I guess, kind of setting the different standard where like we're already like, there's a small group of us. Like there's a small group of people out there that already appreciate watches. And then when you start getting into these watch collecting groups, like you get segmented again. You're like, okay, well, if you can afford a Patek or a Rolex or whatever, you're going to be in this group. Or if you afford a Seiko, you're just going to be on some Facebook group of Seiko collectors and not have like a local presence or, so we're already segmenting ourselves a little further, but it just seems like that's the way it should be. Like where like we all appreciate watches on the same level. And honestly, like somebody may own a Seiko and they may look at it as their Patek.
Correct.
And
Correct.
they still appreciate it as much. Yep. I mean, we just don't, not all of us have the means to buy watches like that, or the resources, means, connections, whatever. Right. Like, so, I can't walk in and buy a Patek. Like they just don't even know who the hell I am. So here I am.
But yeah, I wanted to ask you, Giancarlo, and I guess that kind of segues me perfectly in. I know you mentioned by word of mouth and your community members and stuff, but how do you guys attract and retain the members that are in your watch club community? Is it mainly by word of mouth? What do you think about
that? Word of mouth helps a lot. And then just really posting our events on Instagram and things getting shared, right? So our account's grown organically over the last couple of years, right? So that helps. I have my own personal watch Instagram that has quite a few followers, so I repost things there. And then other members share, our events, hashtags work, right? That helps. So we're always getting people coming that are new, reaching out to us on Instagram, reaching out to us through Facebook. Although the Facebook group is there, it's not. We really just have it there just to have it, but it's not really the means of how we do things. Where we really do most of our day-to-day, and Blake knows this, is our WhatsApp group. And then, WhatsApp has developed, kind of like Slack, they've developed communities, and you can create within the Atlanta Watch Society community, you can create sub-channels, right? Chats, where we have like an Atlanta Watch Society chat, obviously. Underneath that, then we have the Atlanta car group. We have, food, the Grubhub. So the chat itself, the watch chat itself, doesn't get consumed by like car talk or anything like that. Like we want members to continue to talk to each other. That's why we've set up different channels. But let's keep the Watch Society chat, watch talk, and then we have other sub channels where you can talk about other things. And what that's done is we've kind of created a little world where you can just kind of spend all your day and just talk to people about things, not just watches, but other things that may interest you. And we all know within the collecting universe, collectors of certain types of things collect very similar things, right? Like that's why whenever you see like a watch event, there'll be like there'll be a pen company, there'll be a knife company, there'll be the leather thing, the coffee. Yeah. So we kind of did that the same way with the channels and the chats.
Obviously, whenever you kind of told our viewers about your journey, whenever you spilled it, you made it sound like it just happened very organically and very frictionless, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, that's probably not the case. So tell us about some of the the unique challenges that you faced, you know, building a watch community, and like, you know, how you've kind of stepped over those and overcame them.
I think initially it was all right. So initially we started with just a few collectors, and that's really I didn't think much more than that. I didn't think that we were going to grow. I didn't really even have a vision to grow more. I didn't envision us to get like 200 and something people in our group. And it wasn't the plan, right? And in my head, you know, if you would have asked me 2 years ago if that was going to happen, I would have probably been scared because I'm a one man show in reference to a lot of what's done. I mean, have some great help from a lot of people in the community, but really a lot of it's done just by me. So if you would have told me 2 years ago that I was going to embark on this journey to build this watch group and have to do and all this like stuff on my own, you know, I probably would be like, oh my God, where am I going to have the time? Where am I going to find the time to do it? But I did, but I did, but you know, you kind of figure it out. And, you know, back to your point about like, how do you overcome things? You know, it's amazing. You just, especially when you're passionate about something, you figure it out, and then you find people who can help, right? So not being shy to ask for help when needed. But you know, the growth happening so fast. Soon after we started doing the events at the clubhouse, really is where, you know, it started getting to the point where I'm like, all right, I need a little bit of help. I need to figure out how I'm going to send the mail, how I'm going to send invites out. When do I start engaging with brands? I was lucky. The first brand event that we did, the brand reached out to us because they had seen what we were doing, and it was Seiko, right? But then from there, I was able to use that springboard, that Seiko event, to sell it to other brands, right? And since that moment, we haven't had a month basically where we haven't had a brand in town, right? That's how it's kind of snowballed. So it's really just been a matter of trying to figure out how to juggle things, how to keep things organized, how to delegate and work with folks who can help within the community. Those have really kind of been the challenges, but luckily we have such a great community that it's you know, it's been positive overall.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
I've been enjoying the community for sure. And there's been a lot of people that like I had dialogues with in the public chat, and then it turned into like a little private chat. Like I've been talking to, I'm not going to drop his name, but he's a professional baseball player, for Kansas City, and he's a really good dude. You know,
he's wonderful.
Yeah, I mean, we've literally been chatting like probably on and off for about a week, almost every day.
Yep.
And so yeah, he talked about me, like his AP acquisition, and you know, some of the regrets that he has on his collection journey, and
yeah, he shared that with me too. It's funny. He's going through that remorse moment, but I think
well, and I tried to tell him, like, obviously coming from the industry, I came from a sales role, but you know, like the industry and the brands create this problem. Like, hey, you have to buy this watch you don't want to buy a watch you do want. And then, of course, what do? They get the watch in. They don't love it, right? And then it ends up on the secondary market, ends up on eBay, or ends up in Chrono 24 or whatever. And then they're like, oh, like, I wonder how these places get inventory because of you. Like, because you're making people buy shit they don't want to buy, you know? And then, of course, you put this little scare tactic on them. You know, we talked about this, where it's like, oh, if you sell it, like, you're never going to get another AP or whatever, right? Insert brand here, Rolex, you know? It's so stupid that exists in this industry, you know?
I agree.
And we were talking about, and I've noticed personally, especially with the market falling, like a lot of purchasers, consumers aren't buying into that anymore. They're like, look, I have worked hard for my money. You keep increasing the prices every single year. Like, I can't get the watch that I want. I'm just going to buy something that I can get, you know, and something that is likely better than what you're selling, you know, because a lot of these hype watches, and we can talk about the overseas for an example, you know, 10 years ago, nobody wanted that. Like, you could buy them at discount, or even the Royal Oaks, you know, like you could buy those at discount, like the AP, the offshore diver, like you used to be able to get those for $9,000, like
crazy,
brand new, you know, and now 20, right? But so the market is in that weird transitional period where it's coming back to consumer powered and not brand powered, in my opinion, which is a good thing, So I think there's going to be a lot more collectors. Like, this is going to open the door for a lot more collectors. I've heard of all my friends getting more Rolex calls in the past 2 months or 3 months than ever before, which is great. So I think we're going to start seeing a rapid growth, and the community will expand further, right? So, sorry, my spiel.
No.
I'm curious, Giancarlo, and I know you had mentioned, touching on, Seiko being one of the first, brands that you guys kind of featured, and then having that snowball. I'm curious, what's been like the most memorable event for your club that you guys have organized, at least in your eyes? I'm sure everybody else has different opinions on what's been the most memorable, but just curious.
I mean, there's been so many in the last 2 years, but I would say our group watch event with Formex, right?
Formex.
Being able to announce our group watch before our 2-year anniversary, having sold out 50 watches. They made 50 watches. We sold them out in 24 hours. To be able to do that in such a short period of time, being such a young group, I mean, that was like the pinnacle for me. Never thinking that, like I said, we would grow this large. And then if you would have told me also that we would have our own group watch, that we'd work with one of my favorite micro brands on, very closely with them on, developing the whole, the dial and everything with my buddy Dib, who's one of our founding members. That day was really special. And we did it. It's usually with brands, we do the events, as I mentioned, outside of the clubhouse. We did it at the clubhouse because that's kind of where it all started, right? We couldn't fit all in my basement, so we had to do it. We did it at the clubhouse.
And
let's go to Giancarlo's basement, everybody. Sounds fun.
Yeah. It's like it puts the lotion on the skin vibes.
That's a good song. What's the song that plays? I always love that song.
Oh,
I always love that song, but it's such a creepy moment in movie history that I don't like listening to the song anymore. But I love the song.
It's like Goodbye Horses or something.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, that's it.
I think that's what it is.
It's a great song.
It's puts the watch on the wrist vibes.
Yeah. Oh God.
So I mean, that sounds pretty epic and pretty iconic. I know you've done some events with other brands. Tell us about some of those. I feel like it's important to understand, how you've established yourself.
Sure. Yeah, we've done events with, as I mentioned, Seiko. We've done Grand Seiko, which was amazing. Joe Kirk, who I know Blake, encyclopedia of Grand Seiko knowledge, came to Atlanta and did, Grand Seiko just outdid themselves with the event that they did for us. Amazing. Our collectors, our members were so happy because they came with, this concept of education. And that's really what a lot of the brands end up doing, right? They come with really kind of bringing an educational aspect, not necessarily trying to sell watches, right? And we're fine either way. Like we don't put parameters in place for brands. Like we just want you to come. And if you have to sell watches to pay for the event or just to get ROI, I'm a sales guy. I get it. But I mean, I think at the end of the day, and most brands, I think all of them almost get it, that they don't want to sell at the event technically. They rather have it be like a subtle sale, right? They'll drop all this incredible information on you. They'll give you some cool pamphlets, some cool gifts. And then afterwards, people will buy watches, myself included. And, my wife hates every time we have an event, I end up buying a watch from that brand. But I'm like the perfect example, right? IWC is a great example. IWC came to town and, several people bought IWCs after the event. And, Blake, they did an incredible job, with educating us on the brand, transparency, as you mentioned, and it just was incredible. We had FP Journe here. Not Francois Paul himself, but Rocky, who runs, no one doesn't run the Miami boutique, but he's like, their guy, their community person, their brand ambassador, if you will. He came to Atlanta to talk to our collectors about FP Journe, the whole mindset around Francois Paul and how he does things, and the whole watch, all the watches that they make. He brought watches for us to see, which is incredible because a lot of people don't get that opportunity to be so hands-on with a lot of, FP Journe watches. Breitling, we've done events with Tudor, Monta. So we've mixed it up. We've done micro brands, independents, large brands, and then this year, we have a lot of that already going to start next month with Bulova and Jack Mason to start in February, and then several brands after that.
That's really what it's all about. Awesome. Like like when the brands show, and I'm sure there's going to be some listening, but when the brands show support for people like us, the community, that's where it translates into sales.
Correct.
Right? Like that's where it translates into creating, like, you kind of touched on about the GS9 Club, right? Like super passionate group of watch nerds, Grand Seiko collectors. But that's exactly how Grand Seiko has done it. They've said, hey, look, we're going to support you. And I personally, I don't own a Grand Seiko, and I have a confession. I was at a GS9 meeting, and I don't own a Grand Seiko. But I got in, and I just saw, like, they had somebody painting, like
yes, the calligraphy.
Tell me what you want to paint. And then they had like an all-you-can-eat sushi bar, and then they had like literally some of the newest pieces that were online exclusives or whatever that were open. And then they had like little samples of the movements, like outside of the case where people could actually see. And they were talked about some of the innovation. Yeah, they talked about some of the innovation, some of the finishing, decoration.
Damn, I gotta get me a Grand Seiko. This all sounds great.
They're great watches. I don't own.
You go to one of their events. Yeah, you go to one of their events, you'll want to buy one.
I do. I want like one of the entry level spring drives.
I have.
Like
that's what I have.
I think it's
every time I pick up a spring drive, I'm like, I want this.
Yeah,
I have the Snowflake. I mean, if you want to start off, the classic spring drive Grand Seiko to me is the Snowflake. It's like. And I'm not comparing it because they're different watches, but I'm saying like it's their like Submariner, like, you know what I mean? Like that's their like watch. Like when you think of Grand Seiko, the first watch you should think of is a Snowflake.
I actually like the I think it's the SPGA 465, which essentially is like it's $4,800. And it's got the little like woven like it's almost like it reminds me of like the Rolex linen dials, like Correct. From the 70s. And I love that so much.
One of our members, Steven, he has one, Timepiece Tango, and it's beautiful.
And what I love about it too is like on some of the, like, for example, the Snowflake, they have like a recessed power reserve indicator.
Yeah.
And this one actually has like little blocks. It's like, okay, this is 24, this is 24, this is 24 hours. So I know I can look down at my watch and be like, okay, there's 48 hours in my power reserve. Like that's so amazing.
It's beautiful. No, they make incredible watches, incredible dials, the finishing, and like we were lucky in Atlanta. So they basically did like a GS9 event for us in Atlanta, right? Like everything you described was like the same, right? So we've just been blessed.
That's ultimately, and I don't know. So obviously we met through Chris, and and I don't know if Chris told you about the IWC stuff that happened during Formula One.
A little bit.
Like that was where I realized like IWC is a brand that really supports their customers, like really supports the people that support them. And yeah, I mean, we got invited out to like a Formula One event. Chris wasn't able to make that because he was flying in, but we got to see like all the new AMG cars before they released. Like we had to sign non-disclosures. I mean, I got to meet Total Wolf, and then James Marsden was there, and then the guy from Breaking Bad, Aaron Paul. They were all just kind of like mingling with everybody. It was just super cool. Of course, they had kind of like some presentations, and then they shuttled you back over to like the other side of the racetrack, and then from there they had like a little pop-up boutique where they had all the new stuff that like, you know, you couldn't see, like the perpetual, the white ceramic perpetual. And then of course they had the new AMG chronographs. And then yeah, of course, boom. Next thing you know, George Russell Lewis Hamilton. They're doing some driving stuff on the track. They had like a drone show.
Oh my God, so cool.
I mean, it was just insane. And then after that, there was like they niched down even further, and they're like, okay, here's our best customers. And somehow, Chris and I got invited to that. And we got approved to go to that. And then that was where, you know, we were like, I was sitting next to the brand director for IWC, and we were talking, and super nice guy. And then on the other side of the table was the CEO, and then on the other side was Total Wolf. And I mean, there was a lot of huge collectors there. And then, yeah, I mean, the next thing you know, like it was this very weird thing, but I had spoke on a watch panel earlier in the day for Rob Report, and after my panel, it was Jensen Button and Wolfgang Puck that came on after the panel. And so after that, like I posted a video of like Wolfgang Puck like talking, and then he reposted it. And then after that, like I was like, hey, we're at your we're at your restaurant Spago, like come by, you know, because he saw whenever I wrote him, I was like, thank you for all that you've done to the, you know, to the food industry in Vegas, you know, like the fine restaurants. And he like, you know, dropped a little hard on it. And then anyways, so after I said like, hey, like we're at your restaurant Spago, come by. I'm here with, you know, all the IWC guys and AMG guys, and then he literally dropped a heart on it, and I was like, okay, like he didn't reply. The next thing you know, shows up. And
That's amazing.
I was like, oh shit. And then he went around and was taking pictures with everybody. I mean, there's probably 100 people there. He was like he literally came into the restaurant and took pictures with everybody. Like, I mean, he was there for probably like 2 hours, like him and his son or his, you know, nephew or whatever. And I was like, this is really what, you know, supporting a community is about. Like,
exactly.
You know, not only just for the IWC guys, but just the fact that they give their customers the opportunity to be face to face with them, to listen. You know, they were like, hey, what do you want to see? Like, you know, obviously they gave us a disclaimer, like, hey, we're like, you know, a year behind. Like, you got to be a few years out in the watch industry, like, because it takes time to develop these watches. But what do you want to see from us? Like, how, you know, like, is there anything that you feel like we need to do better? And like all the feedback, it just felt like they had like a huge like ear horn like up to their ear, where they were just listening closely and carefully. And I literally was thinking to myself the whole time, and I don't know if Chris was, but you know, like, this is the way to do it. You know, like, this is the way you build such a passionate following around your brand. You know, and some people just don't understand that. There's a lot of brands out there like, oh, like, how do we, you know, get communities like this? You engage them, you support them, you listen to them, and then, you know, just don't try and sell them watches all the time. You know, like, you know, when you support them, they'll support you. It's just a two-way street, you know.
And I think
it's like
we're seeing
any
that
relationship.
Yeah, exactly. Like any relationship, you're right. And we're starting to see it more. Like, I think, you know, speaking just about our community, but we're seeing it, you know, now with brands that last year hadn't reached out to us or we hadn't spoken to, and they're all about doing an event. They see that it really makes a difference. That, you know, not selling watches at an event is not a bad thing. You know, it's like I said, we're indifferent, but I think, for me, you don't need to sell at an event. You make the event all about the community, educating them. And then, like I said earlier too, if you build it, they will come. They will come. The customers will come if you educate them. If you show them that you care about the community and you want to, you know, learn more about the community, learn more about collectors. I mean, for years and years, you know, the brands didn't necessarily engage with the communities the way they are doing that, the way they're doing today. And I'm not knocking them. It's just, it was a different world several years ago. I think now these communities have really grown, and, you know, what better place to talk to, you know, collectors about watches that you're selling or the future of your company, then these types of collector communities, right? Not just your retailer, right? Who's inviting maybe some collectors, but also inviting a lot of their jewelry customers who they want for them to buy their husband or wife some jewelry as well, right? No, focus on, you're a watch brand, focus on the watch communities, right? Your retailer, if it's just an exclusive watch retailer, that's different, but there's not a lot of those. A lot of them have jewelry, right? And I think, I've been to some events that are run by retailers, and it's sad because, you have this incredible brand there, who's represented, and 90% of the people there don't have a clue about the brand or the watches or really care. They're just there to have the food and maybe learn a little bit about a watch, right? But not really, right? So that's why, it's better, in my opinion, to work directly with communities like ours, right? And we'll bring the real collectors who want to learn and want to engage.
Listen up, take notes.
Yeah, I completely agree. Excuse my dogs in the background, guys. I had somebody walking by my house, so they're freaking out.
Amazon.
My next question for you, Giancarlo. Yeah, it's
Is it a watch? Is it a watch delivery? Is it a watch delivery?
I wish. But yeah, no, I'm curious. How do you guys diversify within your club? And how do you ensure inclusivity for each member?
It's a great question. Inclusivity is an enormous part of what our community is all about, right? We are all about, inclusivity from all different types of angles, right? So from your collecting angle, from diversity of people from all different walks of life, all different cultures, communities, right? So we embrace everybody, and it's an open door to everyone who wants to join. Like I said, no matter the type of collector you are, or what's your background. We don't judge on that, and we want everybody to be a member of our community and feel welcome. So I mean, just making people feel comfortable from the beginning, and having them feel that this is a place that they want to be a part of. We had a member. We just had our end of year party, and we had a member, Tick Love is his name. His real name is Naheem, but his nickname is Tick, and we've had him in our group for several months, and he got up at the end of the night and said thank you to everybody for embracing me and allowing me to be a part of this community. And what he meant by that is, he only has a few Seikos and some Invictas. So he felt maybe that he wasn't in the right place because he's seeing people with all different types of watches posting, some people with 30, 40, 50 watches. I know Blake has like 80, right? He doesn't have he doesn't have this massive collection. And his collection is some incredible Seikos, right? And some Invictas that are really cool Invictas, the diver Invictas, not the 55 millimeter ones, right? And I think he thought that being part of a community like ours, it was going to be looked down upon, his collection, and it never was, right? If anything, we encouraged it, and then I'd post a picture of my Invicta, my diver, and then my Seikos, and it just encouraged him, and it just made him feel so good, and he got up there, and honestly, I got a little emotional because it made me feel proud of what we've built, and it's because of people like Tick that I do what I do. I want people like him who feel that they're just starting off, or their collections are just their collections forever, and they're going to stay like that forever, to aspire to maybe possibly in the future you'll have something different than the Seiko, but there's nothing wrong with your collection right now, and just know that. And that's something that we really want to always make sure people feel is part of our DNA. And that was a really nice thing that he said. And we're lucky to have somebody like him in our group, and several other members. He's not the only one. There's several like that.
I wonder, and I've always thought about
it. If you keep talking like that, man.
I know, right? I'm starting to tear up a little. I wonder where that sense. So obviously, right, as a collector, I look at my collection and I see tons of gaps. I see a lot of pieces that I want to get, that I see other people have, and they're crazy pieces, right? I mean, a Royal Oak, or you know, an Aquanaut or a Vacheron 222, you know, or just some off the top of the top of the head.
That's
right?
my grail, right? That's my grail right there.
Yeah, exactly. Like, but it's so weird because even as I've grown as a collector, and I look down at my collection, and this has been the challenge, right? This has been the challenge where I talked about in 2.0, right? Like everybody looks at their collection and looks down on their collection. Like I'm sure you probably noticed that. Like you know, I was talking about the baseball player. He's like, "Oh, I'm not ready." You know, because I was like, "Dude, come on! If you want to talk about your collection," I've talked to Chris, and he's like, "Dude, I don't think I'm gonna do that." You know, like seems like everybody is always looking down their collection. So whenever you look at your collection, you always feel this weird sense of inadequacy or something.
It's
like
imposter syndrome, man.
I started thinking about this. Like, where does this sense come from? You know, like trying to get to the core of why I look at my collection and I feel like my collection's shitty.
Get out of here. You have 80 watches. You have an incredible collection.
I know, but to me, it's not about the quantity, it's about the quality.
No, I know.
Right?
But
I mean, so I bought a lot of watches, and if anything, I'm a good kind of case study as to, you know, as to thinking about your watch purchases. Like
you're a good case study, but I don't know about just for the watches though, man. Might just be you.
Maybe, but jokingly, like, and I've talked about this in some of my other content, but like I've started to fall victim to like purchasing opportunities, like where you come in and somebody is like, "Hey, I've got this watch."
Yeah.
You know, a lot of dealers will say, "Oh, this just came in." Like I don't know when I'm going to get this again. Or like this was the only one I've seen, or like, you know, we're not expecting another one of these for 6 months. Insert some excuse here, right? And then, you know, of course, it's like, hey, look, if you buy it now, like I'll give you whatever % off or whatever, right? You know, like, and then once I started stepping to the other side and seeing that, because now I'm back on your side, like I am here as an advocate for the buyer, not the sales professionals, like, but I started to see that. You know, I've talked about that, and you're going to hear some more of the content that's coming out soon where I've talked about ways that people get you to buy watches you don't want. Like, and I'll probably end up, you know, tied up and gagged in the bottom of a river somewhere. But it's for you, right? And
Blake Rhea did not kill himself.
No, I said that. I publicly said that. If you Google, and I was joking, if you Google, one of my friends actually sent me this. He was like, "What are the luxury watch brand margins or something?" You know, the Lonely Wrist pops up, first article.
Really?
And I was like, if I die, you know why, right? Like, but this has been public information for a while. Like people know this. Like people knew this before.
Yeah.
Like, and people talked about this on like watch forums. And so, you know, obviously I've tried really hard not to use any of the information that I acquired while I was on the inside to spread that, because I feel like that's a conflict. But just to take information that was out there already and to present it differently was my approach. But no, I mean, you always fall victim to the deal. And something that I've talked about is you'll always get a great watch, right? Like there's always going to be a great watch out there, and there's always going to be a good deal to be had. Like if you pass up on X watch, like something else is going to come up and you may have the opportunity. And not to fall victim to that urgent sense that they put on you to buy a watch, right? Because they want you to walk out with a watch. Like, but if you walk out and say, "Hey, let me think about it," you sleep on it for a week or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5, and you dream about that watch, you wake up with cold sweats thinking like, why the hell did I not buy that watch?
Yeah.
Maybe that's a sign you should buy it, right? Should, keyword, not buy it, but think about it, right? And so I'm the case study, right? Where I fall victim to that, right? And that's how I ended up with so many watches. And of course I progress as a collector, and I have a hard time getting rid of things because I buy watches for reasons beyond just buying a watch. Like, hey, I was in Turkey, bought this,
for a memory. Like
Same bought this swatch in Turkey, right?
Means something.
I bought this PRX in Georgia, like Tbilisi, Georgia. And now my dad wears the PRX every single day. But yeah, I mean, it becomes that, right? And then so I have a hard time getting rid of them, which then I'm kind of like screwed on double sides because I purchased it for a reason. So it's got some sentimental value. And then, yeah, so we're going to talk about more content like that later, but yeah. So, and again, it's always this weird sense of inadequacy where you feel like your collection is never going to live up because you always see other people out there, and hype culture is coming full circle, right? Where you see people with a collection of all RMs or all of like the, you know, the tourbillon APs or the skeletons or whatever. And you always be like, well, shit, like that is the collection that if I had that collection, then I would talk about my collection. Right. But what I looked back and I tried to come, you know, and frame this in my mind is, and this is a super long rant, I'm so sorry, but it's not the community that's created that. I feel like it's the brands that have created that, and their sales strategies and the sales professionals that have created that sense of inadequacy where you come in and you buy a watch and you're like, hey, like this will get you in. This will get you into whatever next you want to buy. You know what I mean? And then you're like, well, wait, I just spent $10,000 on this watch, or in the case of this baseball player, like $40,000, you know, 45, and you know, just to get the next thing, you know, and then it creates that sense of inadequacy where you're like, this is a bridge, this is a stepping stone, this isn't a real watch for me. You know?
Yeah.
So
no, I know what you mean.
It's weird. So don't be scared of the watches you own. Like, you know, we all appreciate watches. Like we appreciate it's more about the shared enjoyment of wearing a watch and having a watch that you're proud of and bringing meaning to it and all those things. And it is about having the newest Patek or the newest Vacheron or the newest Longa or Rolex or, I mean, so yeah, sorry, I had to get that out of there. I've been waiting to say that for a long time.
That's a good, it's a good, it's a good topic to talk about. I think for me, you know, when it comes to my collection, you know, it's funny how the other day somebody asked me how many watches I have, and I misspoke, but just because I haven't counted them in a long time, I said 23 or 24. I have more than that. I have like about 30, but a lot of them are quartz pieces. A lot of them are, you know, watches that I don't wear as much as I used to, but they're watches that, you know, they mean something. So I'm never going to part ways with them. Right. And everything else in my collection, you know, that's either, you know, on a mid range or higher end, I'm very happy with right now. And honestly, it's the first time I feel that I actually can say that. Now, don't get me wrong. There's watches that I want right now that are out there that I can't afford right now, or just it's not the right time to purchase them. But I'm learning to be patient, and I'm learning to embrace my collection in a way this year. This is what I really want to do this year, is really focus on wearing the watches that I have more. So I'm not looking for that dopamine high of getting a new watch every other week or every month. You know, people joke around, and Blake, I'm sure you're the same. You know, new watch alerts, you know, GC, like, you know, every other week I had, like last year I had quite a few, right? It was an epic year in purchases, just how it worked out, right? This year I don't anticipate that, but people are probably laughing when they listen to this, thinking that I'm crazy and I'm BSing. But same. I really want to embrace what I have. Like, for example, I got a Daytona at retail from an AD, right? That's a watch that I wanted for a long time, right? I looked at my Instagram, for example, just because, you know, sometimes you forget when you had a watch on. And if you document your watches by taking pictures, you'll know when you wore it last. And I hadn't posted it, or at least hadn't worn it in a long time. I'm like, I worked hard to get this watch. What's wrong?
Yeah, of course.
Right? Why am I looking at other watches? Let me wear this. Let me live in this moment. Let me capture this moment in time with this piece of equipment that I wanted so long, instead of looking for the next dopamine hit in like an Aquanaut or a Vacheron Patrimony or a 222 that I can't even dream about right now. Right? Let me focus on what I have right now. So again, I'm sounding like I'm not going to have any NWAs this year, and people are laughing, like I said, at me right now. But I think this year is going to be a little bit different. I'm sure I'll buy another few watches this year, but they'll have some sort of significance behind them, and they have to really make a lot of sense. I think I'm at the point where the next watch that I want is more of a dress watch. I don't really have a dress watch other than my grandfather's constellation that I inherited. So
I started thinking about that too. Like, it's real. Like, it's real. You get this adrenaline rush and the experience, and you get endless chocolates or like water, and you get waited on, and
espresso,
champagne or whatever. Like, so there's definitely that dopamine factor.
Yeah.
But something that I've started to kind of figure out in my mind is like, whenever I feel like a watch is getting old, because it happens, I'll just put a new strap on it. I literally have a binder of all deluxe straps, and it's just 20, 20, 20. And I literally will buy watches that are all 20s.
I need that binder.
So, yeah, I've got 2 of them.
It's pretty thick. I was like, what is this, Pokemon cards? And I'm like, oh, it's
I love deluxe. I love deluxe straps.
Deluxe was the second podcast host, like Ken was the second podcast guest that we had, and I mean, he's just an amazing guy. But yeah, so I'm like, I've got literally all my watches are 20s, and they've been so good, and it gives you that same feeling where like, hey, this is a brand new watch, right? And then I started thinking about the other side of the coin, like you're always experiencing different things in life, right? Where you fall into that ritual habit is you wear the watch during the same situations, where you're like, oh, I'm going to dinner with my wife. Okay, I'm just going to wear whatever, right? You do that all the time, right? But during your life adventure, if you experience something new while wearing an old watch, it feels like a damn brand new watch.
No, I agree.
And that's something it took me a long time to figure out. And that is priceless advice. It'll save you tons of money. Do
what I did. Bring your sons with you if you have kids. Bring your kids with you to buy your watch, and you'll never sell it, because the whole point of bringing like your son or your daughter with you is that's going to be their watch one day, right? Yeah. So that'll also keep you from selling. So like this Daytona, I'll never sell because one of my kids was with me at the boutique, and it was a special moment, and it's one that I wanted to make sure I captured.
A core memory.
Correct.
A core memory was created.
Correct.
My Rolex dealer, like, they have a strategy. Like, well, they will sell it to me they'll sell me watches on twice a year, which is usually pretty standard. One of them being my birthday, and the other one being my wedding anniversary. so every time I get a call, it's on those 2 days. And of course, what do? They stamp the card. Birthday, anniversary. I'm like, well, shit. Okay, like, you got me. Like, I can't sell these. And that's how I got my Daytona. Or not my Daytona, my Wimbledon, and then my Submariner. So, and my Oyster Perpetual, which I never wear.
Date sub or no date?
I have the Starbucks.
Nice.
I got it. Yeah. I got it a few months ago, so it's like brand new. It doesn't even have a scratch on it yet.
That's like the unofficial watch of the Atlanta Watch Society, by the way. I think we have like 10 members with that watch.
I think it's a future classic, because like if you look at the previous, the Hulk, and then you look at the Kermit before, those were all discontinued pretty quickly. So I think, if I'm not mistaken, this was made for the 70th anniversary of the sub or something.
Yes. Yeah.
And I could be wrong there, but I think it's going to be a future collectible, maybe,
Agreed.
So yeah, I guess we'll see. So Justin, did you check out? Oh, he's back.
I think it was dude. Sorry, I had the pest guy. Like,
oh no, I thought we were making you.
Dude,
we were getting emotional.
Trying to listen.
He's crying over there.
Yeah, no, dude. I've had the pest guy walking around my house, and I've got a Chihuahua, and he freaks out at everything. So he's been barking for like 10 minutes. That's why I've had my mic on mute, because like I can't keep it on. But yeah, no, I've been here. I've been listening. I'm just, like I said, noise canceling headphones. I'm good. But no, my next question for you, Giancarlo. Sure. What advice would you give to someone who's looking to start their own watch collection? For anybody out there who, of course, doesn't have many watches or is just starting.
I mean, just buy what you like. Do research, obviously, but really buy what you like. Don't be influenced by somebody else and what they think is the right watch for you. Obviously, there's great places to go to get ideas, especially if you're starting off on like what type of companies are out there that have certain price points. From that perspective, I think, yes, do your research, but then within that scope, then, buy what you think is going to look good on your wrist. If you have a local retailer, stop by that local retailer and try the watch on. I think that's one thing that, in this day and age of e-commerce, is lost a bit, is, not being able to try on watches as much as you have been able to in the past. I mean, Las Vegas is a unique place where, there's so many boutiques. Manhattan, Miami,
Oh, yeah.
Atlanta, we have a few too, but not as much as Vegas does, or other bigger cities, right, with large boutiques. So sometimes it's hard to, try on a watch before you buy it, right? But I think that it's important to be able to try on a piece if you can. So join a local community, join a like Atlanta Watch Society, a Vegas Watch Society, or other groups like Red Bar Raleigh, who we talked about offline earlier, where you can go and meet with collectors, and ask them kindly, and respectfully, if you could try on their watch, if you think that's a watch that you may want to purchase in the future or want to learn more about. Being part of communities is really helpful, in educating you for future purchases. It's helped me immensely. It's gotten me to the point now that, I'm a Mr. Dive watch, sports watch kind of guy. And now I'm kind of, for the next phase, I'm itching for, a really nice dress watch. And that's because of the community. A few members have some beautiful dress watches, and I've been, looking at them and trying them on and learning more. And, I think I'm at that moment in my collecting journey where I really want to maybe invest in one in the future.
For sure. Now, taking that same concept and giving advice to people, let's say somebody wants to start another watch club. I know that we've talked about some of the history and kind of how you got your roots and beginnings. What advice would you give people that are trying to start up their own clubs?
Just come at it from a perspective of really just wanting to bring good people together, right? Give people a comfortable space. Safe space is important, to be able to come together and talk about watches and get together. I think that's really what helped us immensely, was when we transitioned from doing events, when they weren't even events yet, they were really just meetups in the back of a bar or a brewery,
Or in a
to,
basement.
yeah, exactly, or a basement, to like the clubhouse, right? And
Goodbye,
then events,
horses.
yeah, or then like brands paying for like actual, you know, paying for actual like spaces for us, right? I think, just giving people a place that's safe to be able to, bring their collection, and be able to, feel comfortable in coming back every month.
What do you feel like, or how do you see the future? Because obviously, in my eyes, you're this innovator, right? Like you're
For
bringing
sure.
a new perspective to collecting and to watch clubs. So like, I'm curious to know, like, how do you see watch clubs evolving in the future?
That's a great question.
We always try and stump people.
No, it's a great question.
Hit you with a curveball.
Yeah.
I think more of what we're doing, and I don't mean to say that in any way, I don't mean to sound arrogant at all, or that we're doing something perfect, but I think what we're doing is simple, right? And it's really just making sure that there's a connection between the brand and the local watch community, right? And doing more of that, and showing brands that it really makes a lot of sense to do that, not necessarily having to work with a retailer in the middle to bring watches to that community. And nothing against retailers. I have great relationships with many retailers, but I think that, like I described earlier, one thing that happens is, these retailers have a client list, and it's not an independent list of watch collectors only. There's people, all different types of people on their list that they want to invite to these. And then your local collector who hasn't spent any money yet won't get invited, but that person in 5 years may become your biggest spender, and you don't even realize it. And I hate to put it in that kind of perspective, but it's true if you think about it. You never know who you can inspire for the future. We have one person in our group, and there's several others, but there's one guy that I'm thinking about who came to our came to one of our events with no watches at all. I think he had just a swatch. The guy's gone down a rabbit hole that is insane, and I think his significant other wants to kill me, because he has so many watches now within the 2-year span, right? But that's a person that would have never been invited by like, let's say some retailers or some other watch groups to some of these events because they're not buying watches or they don't have a collection, right? But now this person, every opportunity he has, he's buying a new watch and he's keeping them. He's not selling them. He has the means to keep the watches and he loves it and he wants to capture moments in time like you, Blake. That's why it's hard for him. He's similar to you in that he doesn't want to like just let go of these pieces because then they now mean something on his journey. So I think the future really is just making sure that the community stays very close to the brands, going direct to brands to plan events and really, giving a great comfortable space for both to really kind of engage.
Yeah, wow. Sorry, I'm just kind of like collecting all of the thoughts that invoked. What do you feel like has been, I mean, it sounds like you already addressed it, but I kind of want to hear it vocally from you again. Like, what do you feel like has been the most rewarding part of building a watch community and being a part of one?
Making so many great friends, the people, honestly. And I know that sounds cliche and corny, but it's not. It's the people. Honestly, I came to Atlanta from New York, not knowing many people down here. My wife and my kids, obviously, but I had some friends from work, obviously, because work moved me down here. But I've made lifelong friends forever. That I'll keep. They'll be my friends forever, and that's incredible. In such a short period of time, I have this whole built-in community of people that I trust, that I care about, and it's just an incredible thing that's happened, and all because of watches. And I know that sounds funny when you just say it like that, but it's true. The watches brought us together, but the people make us stick around.
That's right. Yeah, that's a great way of putting it. And we'll go ahead and kind of wrap up with you, Giancarlo. I've got one last question. What's next for the Atlanta Watch Society?
Another great question. Well, expanding upon, the what we've built here. And what I mean by that is, there's been several folks that we've been chatting with. Blake, I don't know if you've shared this publicly. Have you already or not?
I mean, I posted it on
to...
my Instagram, but
okay,
go ahead. I mean, it's probably better to come from you than to come from me.
No, I mean, it's good from you. Blake and I, Blake, reached out to me through my friend Chris Hill. Shout out to Chris Hill, who brought us all together. Wonderful person, great collector and friend. About starting a chapter in Vegas. And it's something that for me makes so much sense in so many ways, and getting to know Blake and how incredible of a person you are, Blake, and how great of a collector you are, to be able to have you be our first like chapter leader outside of Atlanta, is just super exciting. And there'll be other chapters possibly coming in the future, kind of all under an umbrella of something called the Watch Society, and it's all still kind of being built out. But what we did here in Atlanta really resonated. It's been something that's been special, and more and more folks have been reaching out to us around the country to see if we can help them start other groups like ours in their cities. And we're just we're excited. We're trying to find a time to do it, but luckily we have people like Blake who are incredible and well connected, that are the perfect types of people to help start groups in their cities. And Vegas makes so many sense to be one of our chapters for so many reasons. I spoke about it earlier, all the incredible watch boutiques in Vegas, all the brands that go out there, so many people going out there anyway, for vacation, for events, right? It's the city that does events. Nobody does events better than Vegas, right? So exciting times ahead.
I hope I can keep the hype. I hope I can live up to the hype, but but I've taken the other approach to, I mean, obviously you've seen my community, you're in it, but yeah. I've taken the other door. Instead of getting collectors together, I got the industry people together, and then we're going to go backwards into the collectors, because like we all like there's people in there, like, and whenever I look at the community, I'm like, holy shit, like there's so many like amazing people in here already. But like, we're going backwards, right? Like all of them know collectors. Like everybody in the industry knows 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 or whatever collectors. Mm-hmm. So it just made more sense because we've kind of kicked off with the brand support, So I guess we'll see if it turns out to be as successful as yours, of course. But
Sure will. And I think it made sense to do it the way you did it in Vegas, right? Because Vegas is a different type of place. I think one of our first conversations, we spoke about that. I think I even joked with you. I said, man, I wish I could have started this in Vegas first, because Vegas, with all the ability you have, with all the brands being there, it helps out. It helps out immensely. And I think it makes perfect sense to start off the way you did. And every chapter should do it the way they feel is best. We're never going to tell anybody the way it has to be done. We'll give you the experiences we've had and what's been successful for us, and then you can, obviously cater it and mold it into your own way. But we're just, the only thing we want is to make sure that we continue to promote positivity within the community. No assholes is our only rule, right? People that are not going to judge you, and
no politics,
and no politics and nothing like that, right? Just come for the watches, stay for the people. And if you get to know people from this perspective, it's amazing how many people you'll become friends with because of it.
Yeah, and we're kind of segueing. We are trying to wrap up our date here, our first date. And I've been communicating a lot with some of the local support, our support system here. So once we have a date, listeners, you guys will probably hear about it or know about it, and we're working on getting some discounted hotel rooms. So I know we're trying to do it right. So
I'm coming, right?
I know.
Can't wait.
I know. And the property that we're gonna have it at, and the local venue that we're talking to and communicating with, and we're just waiting for essentially like a thumbs up from corporate, because it is a corporate entity. But you guys will be the first to know. And
Can't wait. And
yeah, I mean, the space that we've chosen or has been offered to us, I don't know, however it worked, is an amazing place, and it's the amenities and just the supportiveness of them, and just their whole leadership team. I mean, it's crazy to think, like, I mean, what's it been, like 2 or 3 months that, officially maybe 2 or 3 months, and just going in there, just having that discussion. Hey, we're a new watch community here in Vegas. Like, here's what we want to do. And they're like, oh, how many people are coming? I don't know.
A lot.
You would think like that would turn somebody off. Like, here we are, a new community with, new supporters, you'd think that would turn them off, but they were like, nah, let's do it. And I'm like,
because they get it. I'm telling you, they get it. They see it.
Yeah.
And more brands are understanding that they need to engage with communities like ours.
Yeah. And they've done small little events for other friends that have gotten together, like, oh, we got 10 friends and whatever. But yeah, I mean, the approach has been a lot different. And I have so many friends that are in the sales roles at these boutiques. And they're all throwing their cape around it. And I mean, it's just going to be a great place to get everybody together. And I can't even tell you how excited I am to get the first date officially locked in, and then just to see how many people show up.
Can't wait.
It's going to be amazing. Justin, of course, you're invited. If you want to come.
I'm not coming. If you're going to be there, I'm not coming. Giancarlo, we can do something.
I didn't expect you to be there, sadly to say, but I just know how hard it is for you. Like, you just got a lot going on in your personal life. So
I'll make it, man. Yeah, y'all let me know. I'll be there.
Okay. Awesome. Okay. Yeah.
Vegas, baby.
Yeah. I mean, if you and some of the people from the Watch Society, Atlanta Watch Society, were like, oh, like, how do I? They've been texting me like, how do I tell my wife that I'm coming to your watch event? I'm like, I don't know.
They're
man.
like, you're going to strip clubs.
I don't know. I don't know how to tell you how to do that. Like, I can't even convince my own wife to let me have the Watch Society. So yeah, here we are. So don't send those questions to me. I'm sorry, I can't help you, but I'll figure out a way to lock the date in, and I will figure out a way to be there without dying.
I think so many people from Atlanta are going to come to this. It's not even funny. And
that's the cool thing. Like, like, I literally have people that texted me. One of my friends that I've built a relationship with, his wife is on the senior. Well, she's like a high up for the Minnesota Vikings. So like she's in the C level for them. And he just texted me. He's like yesterday. He's like, hey, I'm coming to Vegas. Here's the time that I'm coming. We're taking you out to dinner. Like we're gonna do it up with you. And I get that text every week, right? Like
that's why it's such a great spot you're in.
I know it's weird because, and this is weird, but whenever I lived in Raleigh, like, and Justin was my neighbor, right? Like I see Justin more now living in Vegas than I did when I lived across the street from him.
That's crazy.
Right, Justin?
Pretty much, in all honesty.
That's crazy.
It's weird like that. It's so weird because people are like, oh, going to Vegas. Like, who do I know in Vegas? Oh, Blake. There's very few people that like they can attach them in Christmas, right? So, we obviously have a new global Atlanta Watch Society member, who was invited over Christmas, and same thing. He came here and he was picking up James Cameron, and he was like, hey, dude, So I'm starting to be very fortunate enough that I can live vicariously through my friends who buy watches while I just sit there.
Yeah, exactly.
And I don't have to spend my own money to get that experience. But same thing, he came in, he was like, hey, I'm picking up a deep sea and I want you to come with me. I'm like, I'll be there.
That's awesome.
Mean shot.
And yeah, he's a huge collector and he's always in Vegas and starting off with support like from collectors like that is insane. I know some other collectors from Utah that are, hey, I'll fly in. Just tell me when. Yeah, I'm getting a lot of people that are saying they're going to fly in and just bringing everybody together. Like, especially during Formula One, when it was like Chris and then some of the people I knew from some of the watch brands. And then we had Abington from Abington Co., like the watch brand. And then we just had so many unique people. There was Josephine. She's an amazing person. She's the territory. I think I don't want to quote her wrong, but I think she's a territory director for Bucherer. We were at a Bucherer event and yeah, just to get all those cool people in one space and just to see how they all like vibe is the reason why I'm fortunate enough to be able to do this. So
I agree, Blake. It's exciting.
So, all right, let's leave it on that note. Anything left that we didn't cover? Like, did you feel like we checked all the boxes?
I think we did. No, it's been a pleasure talking to both of you. Looking forward to meeting both of you in person. We don't know each other in person, which is crazy, Blake. We've been talking for a while, but excited about, obviously getting together in Vegas. And, just thanks for being a member of our community. And, thank you for having me on the show today. It's been a real pleasure.
Thank you for coming. It has occurred to me that I have started off every show and I have wrapped up every show. So, Justin, I want to give you the opportunity to finish off this show.
Well, see you guys later.
It's like, checks out.
Oh, we didn't do a wrist check.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I'm wearing my Daytona because Blake started a controversial topic in our group that was fun about the Zenith and Daytona. Well, we won't get into it now, but it's a lot of fun.
That's awesome. That's a beautiful watch, by the way.
Thank
Hublot,
you.
Classic Fusion. Come at me, haters. Come at me, haters.
I got a Zodiac on.
No, I thought that was. I was looking at it and I had a feeling that's what it might have been. Beautiful, very nice.
Yeah, lovely
watch. I got a Zodiac, and then obviously he's been looking at Zodiac for a while, and then just the stars aligned, and sure enough, next thing you know, Justin got a Zodiac, and
beautiful.
So now we got some Zodiacs.
Keep your eyes up too, because I'll probably be posting something about it pretty soon on our channel.
Can't wait.
Yeah, so Justin's going to be working on some YouTube videos.
Awesome.
And we're trying to get all these blog posts. We've got maybe 40 or 50 blog posts that have already been written that we're trying to get up. So I'm vocalizing it publicly.
Keep your eyes and ears up.
So if Justin doesn't get blog posts up, hit him up and annoy him, people.
All right,
because they annoy me. They annoy me about it. I'm transferring that responsibility to Justin.
Please be nice.
We will be. Can't wait to see it, Justin.
Appreciate it, man. Well, nice to meet you again, Giancarlo. Thanks for taking all the
Likewise.
time. Appreciate
course.
everybody tuning in, watching
Yes.
us, listening to us. Thanks for keeping up with us. And we'll see you in the next episode.
Sounds
See
good.
ya.
Bye, guys. Take care.